Hello and welcome. Welcome. Today we are talking about love as boundaries, or love is boundaries. How does love equal a boundary? That's what we're going to talk about today as we are thinking about this month being about relationships and love and Valentine's Day and all of those things. I thought, well, this is a great time to think about boundaries in a slightly different way. Often, often we think about them as constraints in a relationship, and it has this negative context, this negative connotation. We think, oh, okay, this person is irritating me. I need to put up another boundary so that I am protected. And while boundaries can and do protect us, we're going to look at a few things today, perhaps give you a new perspective when thinking about setting boundaries with your tween. If you've got a beverage, join me. I've got some slightly lukewarm tea in my favorite mug I got from a student. And let's get going. My name is Marina Gabor. I am founder of Tween Talk and also the Life Skills Club, where I help tweens and their parents move forward with life skills like communication, critical thinking skills, and we move forward so that we can become, or your tweens can become functioning adults down the road. Now, when thinking about your relationship with your tween and boundaries, and I was thinking about, okay, how is this going to work? What's that going to look like? And I thought about friends of ours that have cattle. Now, I know your tween is not a cow, it's all good, but think about animals for a second, and they have boundaries. As keepers of animals, they put animals in pens or in fences for a couple of reasons. To keep them safe, so you know where they are, and it creates a sense of security. The same as with your kids. Now think about these cattle, and we've got cows that are going to market, and they are going in one pen or one fence. Then we have expectant cows, or cows that are calving. They go in a completely different enclosure. They have different boundaries because they're in a different stage. Then you have some that perhaps they're weaning, and they go in a different one altogether. So depending on the stage, they have different boundaries. That's the same with your tweens. When we're thinking about tweens, and we're thinking about, like, say we're starting at the tweens like sort of that 9-ish, going to like say 13, it's not going to be the same the whole time. Those boundaries will change. Now, how do boundaries equal love? Well, thinking about boundaries as love, and thinking about those cows going to the different pens, we think safety. When we put up boundary lines, it is for safety. And when your tween is, say, 9, those boundary lines are going to be in a certain spot, because when they're 9, they think about certain things, they're capable of doing certain things. Their critical thinking skills are not as developed. Those boundary lines might be closer to you because we want to keep them safe. As they get older and head towards the tweens, as they show that they can increase their responsibilities, then those boundaries start to expand. And it's good for you, and it's good for your tween, because by the time they're 18, 19, this kind of thing, when they're adults, we want those gates to be wide open and they are capable and confident to move forward on their own. But we start with these boundary lines because we love them. We want them to be safe. Now, I know there was a study done, and they looked at kids playing in a playground No fences. No fences on this playground. They could go wherever they wanted. And the kids, they huddled in the middle. They didn't feel safe. Then they had other kids that were in an enclosed playground. And the kids ran all the way to the boundary line. They felt free. They felt safe because they knew where those lines were. Which brings me to the other part of thinking about boundaries. And kids feel safe, and you know exactly where the boundary lines are. It's very clear. There's no guesswork, which takes this huge pressure off. For your tween, they're not always wondering, like, am I going to make mom mad if I do this? And you know exactly if they do this thing, they're outside the line. If they don't do that thing, they're inside the line. It's very clear. So it takes this pressure off. And it's something that you can talk to your tween about, have discussions as you go, and then you're saying, well, you're taking on new responsibilities. That's exciting. So because you have these new responsibilities, you also have these new privileges. That boundary is pushed a little further. And now your tween can play all the way in this new boundary area. And they can do so feeling confident that those boundary lines are there to keep them safe. They're not going to let them go too far, so they can explore. Now, I know firsthand exactly how they could push those boundary lines. And if you have a tween who is pushing the boundary line every single day, it is exhausting. If this is your experience, I don't need to tell you it's exhausting. You already know this. But here's the thing. If you have set up this boundary line, and if you keep it, your tween will feel safe. Even though they rage against that boundary line, they will feel safe. That feels like love. Love is that boundary. So every day, they'll say, I'm going to test this again. Now, they might not actually say that, but they do. And so they want to know, is that boundary still there? And then when it is, they'll yell and rant and rave and be upset. Just kind of lock your heart and know that love is that boundary. And then eventually, they'll go up and they'll go, oh, yep, boundary's still there. No point in grumping about it. And carry on their merry way. The boundary shows love. The boundary is love. And then they get more responsibility. They practice that responsibility because they do need to practice. It doesn't like magically come that they know all of these things. They're learning and growing, but those boundaries provide a safe place for them to learn and to grow. Boundaries provide a safe place for them to learn and to grow. And how does that work with your tween moving forward? What can you do to set those boundaries? How do you know they're in the right place? Well, first of all, you want to set them when you're having a good time with your tween, like it is a good moment. We don't set boundaries, I learned the hard way, when your tween is running against something and you think, oh, I just need to change this. That's not the time to change it. Because then there's this flex and you don't know exactly what to expect and it gets really messy and you end up setting boundaries where you don't want them. Or they do something, your tween does something and you're like, oh, it makes me so mad when they do that. I'm bringing the boundaries back in. And all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute. How does this work? So we want to think about where are the boundary lines and then talk about it with your tween and say, here's the boundaries. And in order to sort of level up, if they're computer game people, They will like this idea of like leveling up. So how do they get to the next level of um, freedom, if you will? Well, in this boundary box, we do these kind of things. These are age appropriately acceptable things for you to expect of a 9-year-old. Excellent. And then they are demonstrating those things, and you say, I think you're ready for a bit more responsibility. But with that responsibility also comes more privilege. You always want to balance those, responsibility and privilege. Like, think about your life. You've got tons and tons of responsibility. Responsibility for feeding, clothing, providing shelter for our kids, so much more. Anyway, this weight of responsibility. If we never had any privileges or any good things, it would be, I don't know, how do you move forward? Like, it would be burdensome. You would just not feel like motivated to move forward. Well, the same with your tween. If they're in this box and they think, so I need to clean the bathroom, and I need to do my schoolwork, and I got to pick up after myself, and I got to help with the dishes. And what do I get for that? And you might think, well, you get to live here for one, but they don't think like that. So what's in it for them? So turn that around a bit and just say, okay, here's the boundaries. Now what's in it for them? And if you start thinking, well, what's in it for them? It might be something that you're like, I don't really care about that, but it's really meaningful to them. Great. Use it. Say, yes, at this point, you get to, like, as soon as you're done your schoolwork, you can play for as long as you like until supper, doing whatever you like. Freedom in that boundary. They finish the schoolwork, the responsibility, then they get the privilege, doing what they like till dinner. So I hope that as we've gone through, this has been helpful, thinking about love as boundaries, that you'll be thinking about, where do we put the boundaries? How can we make them age appropriate for what your tween is capable, and then give them some privilege within that boundary. And as they grow and develop through those tween years, we're constantly expanding those boundaries. They're going to feel safe, they're going to feel loved, they're going to feel secure, because love is boundaries. If you like this content and you want to hear more, you want to learn more from me, please drop a link below. I would love to reach out and connect with you. And until next time, think about boundaries. Think about how it goes with your tween. Talk to your tween about boundaries. And go give your tween a hug.